Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Fig Tree podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host. I'm coming to you in the late morning of March 19th, 2025. And several things to bring to your attention. And we're going to start with Iran. If there is something going on in the world right now that should have your deep concern, it is conflict and potential conflict with Iran. And I say that because this thing between Trump and Iran could get very personal very quickly. So last Saturday, the U.S. hit targets in Yemen. So why is Yemen important? So just like Iran is the backer of Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the backer of Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran is the backer of the Houthis in Yemen. They are on the Arabian Peninsula, and they have caused much havoc on the Red Sea. And as this conflict between Israel and Hamas has erupted, um, there's been situations where um, there have been situations where the Houthis have been firing drones and a variety of other things just to create havoc, not only with the passage of ships through the Red Sea, but things directed at Israel, even now directing at the United States. So last Saturday, there is a U.S. hit specific targets in Yemen. The president has been very direct with Hamas and said, "You need to release all of the remaining hostages." I think basically Trump has kind of worn out his patience with how this is proceeding, and he says it's time to release all the hostages, be done with this in Israel. And as he said that, he's also issued some warnings to Iran, and he's trying to get Iran to the negotiating table to strike a deal with the US. Do you really think the mullahs in Tehran are going to sit down with a guy or an administration representing the man who they attempted to kill back last summer and fall, and who they don't like because he killed one of their generals in 2020? So this is a situation that could get very personal very quickly. This is a situation that could get very intense very quickly. Now, pardon me, it would make what's going on between Israel and Hamas look tame, I believe, because you could have a wider war very quickly. I could see Turkey getting involved. I could see potential. Now, there are several Arab states that are not fans of Iran. Would they stay completely out of it? My guess would be yes, but that remains to be seen. But you could see potentially Russia getting involved, backing uh, the Iranians. You could see China getting involved, backing the Iranians, variety of others. So, and with the situation right now with our allies in Western Europe, are they just going to rush to the aid of the United States? I don't know. All I know is this is something that could get very hot very quickly. And I really don't like the foreign policy reporting that comes in the United States media, anyways. Um, and the things that I've been reading have been coming from the Jerusalem Post. So there's that. The second one is France. So France has an official. I don't know if he's a member of parliament or he's a member of the EU Parliament. Doesn't matter, frankly. So there's this public official from France, and he starts flapping his gums about how the U.S. no longer upholds the values of the Statue of Liberty, and they want the Statue of Liberty back. Well, we aren't giving the Statue of Liberty back, friends. That's just the way it is. And if you can't handle that, too bad. Um, at which time there has been kind of a little bit of war of words, if you will, between uh, Washington and Paris, with these people in Paris saying, well, we saved your bacon in the American Revolution, we saved your bacon at the time of the Civil War, at which time we say, well, we've saved France too. Today they'd be speaking German if it wasn't for the United States military in World War One. And so there's a little dust up that has been surfacing, and a lot of it is people getting their knickers in a knot over JD Vance's speeches over there in Europe and a variety of other things. And so that is something that is happening. Pardon me. Something that is not getting nearly the attention it needs is SpaceX's rescue of two American astronauts at the International Space Station. Um, there was a mission to rescue these people that emerged over the weekend, and they splashed down on Earth right out off the coast of Florida just yesterday. I'm going to read this. Um, this is from someone I follow on X. Uh, After an unexpected 9-month ordeal in space, astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams are finally back home on solid ground, and they weren't alone. They returned alongside NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, all of whom splashed down off the coast of Florida aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon. Originally, Butch and Sonny were only supposed to be in to spend 8 days on the International Space Station, but a catastrophic failure with Boeing's Starliner capsule turned into a 270-day nightmare instead of a quick mission. They were left in limbo, uncertain when or how they'd make it home. In the end, SpaceX stepped in, got the job done. Here's a and while astronauts undergo rigorous training to handle extended time in microgravity, this wasn't a controlled experiment. Their bodies had to endure prolonged muscle deterioration, calcium depletion, and potential long term vision damage, all while waiting for a solution that should have come much sooner. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, there's various images of them that you can see in a variety of spots. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, obviously the owner of SpaceX, went to Sean Hannity the other night and stressing on should have. Elon Musk joined Hannity on Tuesday evening, and he revealed a detail that should infuriate every American. Musk shared that SpaceX could have rescued the astronauts stranded in space for 9 months, after a few months at most. He offered to bring them home, but the Biden administration, who was in office at the time, rejected his offer for political reasons. We definitely, and this is a quote from Musk, we definitely offered to return the astronauts earlier. There's no question about that. Quote, the astronauts were only supposed to be there for 8 days, and they've been there for almost 10 months. So obviously, that doesn't make any sense, he continued. SpaceX could have brought the astronauts back after a few months at most, and we made that offer to the Biden administration. It was rejected for political reasons. That's just a fact, he told Sean Hannity. For 9 months, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams were stranded in space, suffering the physical toll of microgravity while a solution was readily available. SpaceX had the capability to bring them home months ago, yet the Biden administration allegedly said no. Um, why didn't the Biden administration have someone override someone's very juvenile position on this? This didn't have to go to these lengths. And the fact that it was done solely for political reasons is really just flat out juvenile. I mean, it's so childish and petty to make a decision like this that involves the lives of two individuals, both Americans, solely on the premise that Elon Musk is aiding the opponent to Joe Biden slash Kamala Harris. So there's that. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been happening in the area of judges and how this could heat up very quickly. So we've had a judge chime in on deportations of the Venezuelan gang Tren Aragua. We've had a judge chime in on the need to restore funding for U.S. Agency of International Development. We've had a judge chime in and say, oh, okay, you found this suspicious funding in the EPA, but you have to spend the rest of the money. There are judges coming out of the woodwork to justify their existence on pretty much anything and everything. And the problem is this. The problem is these judges are overstepping territory, and they are basically trying to tell the executive what he can and can't do. And this ranges from things involving the Defense Department to the Secretary of State, variety of others. And this is really a bad trend. And the judge who stuck his nose in on the deportations of Venezuelans, basically ordering planes to come back, that didn't happen because the planes were in international waters when the decision came down. So, a couple things are going on here. So, as the Department of Government Efficiency has been engaged in this review of the federal government, one of the things Elon Musk says is one of the most alarming things that they have come across is how a non-government organization, otherwise known as an NGO, and you'll see that acronym very common in things revolving this or involving this. So an NGO will be formed, and then you will have people who are related to either members of Congress or other very important people will be able to profit from the NGO because they're now working for them in some capacity. They're serving on a board, they're employed somehow, and the judge in the deportation case has a daughter that works for a place called Partners for Justice. And what do? They're getting involved in the legal issues involving these deportations. Can you say conflict of interest? And this may not be the case solely with the judge involving the deportation issue. This could be involving others as well. And there is a U.S. representative, his name is Tim Burchett, and he's from the state of Tennessee. And if you are on X, you might see these short little videos of him after a day at the Congress. He will do like a short 2, 3, 4, 5 minute video explaining some things, thanking his folks in Tennessee for sending him to the Congress. Occasionally, you might also get him shooting a video while he is at his home in Tennessee. And he's one of the people who, like a mindset of a Thomas Massey and a Chip Roy, want the waste, fraud, and abuse to be gone and done away with. And he's also said how the Congress responds to Doge and what it finds is going to be very interesting. And this comes as we know a lot of people become congressmen and senators, and they are more rich when they're done serving in Congress than when they arrived. And they have salaries of what? About 200 grand. And so something isn't right. And there's always been a concern that there's something going on. And as Tim Burchett says, there are people that need to go to jail over profiting themselves, their families, or their friends at the expense of American taxpayers. And that's one of these things that's been going on here. But to help you understand even the bigger deal that is going on with Doge, I don't think I'll read the whole thing, but I'm going to give you the gist of something that appeared in the Washington Times, or no, the Washington Examiner on November 15th, 2021. And this is someone by the name of Michael Pack. And he was someone who was commissioned by Donald Trump to go in and run Voice of America. Well, let me give you a little flavor for what happened here. I'm going to read the piece, or much of it, that ran in the Washington Examiner back in 2021. I have witnessed the death of democracy. I don't mean in a poor country with a few democratic institutions and weak rule of law. I don't mean via a military coup or under pressure from a hostile power. I mean here in the United States, quietly and as a result of decades of decay, rot from within. In a sense, we all witnessed it. From the moment Donald Trump was elected president until the day he left office, government officials refused to follow his orders that conflicted with their own views. In spite of their obligation to serve, however, whoever is president. The permanent bureaucracy felt that they know better. After all, they were experts, while the president, in their estimation, was an ignoramus or worse, unfit for office. For example, during Trump's first impeachment, a parade of senior officials, many serving on the White House's National Security Council or the State Department, testified against their boss, making clear that their understanding of Ukraine was superior to his, liberating them to undermine his policies. But I witnessed the death of democracy up close and personal. President Trump selected me to run the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which is responsible for all government international broadcasting. At a budget of about $850 million a year, U.S. AGM is made up of 5 broadcasters: Voice of America, Cuba Broadcasting, Middle East Broadcasting Networks, Radio Free Asia, and Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Together, they reach over 350 million people a week in 70 languages. I've been told that the day after Trump was elected, the senior leadership at US AGM held a meeting to decide how best to block Trump from assuming authority over the agency, as they deemed Trump dangerous and unqualified. The White House selected me in March 2017, 2 months after President Trump was sworn in. Agency leadership, along with others in the federal bureaucracy and eventually Democrats in the Senate, blocked my confirmation for 3 years and 3 months. I finally walked into the door at US AGM in June 2020 for the final 8 months of the Trump presidency. My goal, my only goal, was to return the news services to their legally mandated mission to report news that is accurate, objective, and comprehensive, in the words of the Voice of America Charter, which is U.S. law, and to promote American ideals like democracy and human rights around the world. In this modest, nonpartisan goal, I was doomed from the start. The U.S. AGM permanent bureaucracy was ready to undermine every move of my administration. With the help of their allies in the media, Congress, and the courts, as well as pro bono lawyers. After all, they had been preparing for years while my nomination languished. To give you a few highlights, on my first day, I removed or caused to resign the heads of the 5 networks, as was my explicit right under law, and is a common practice among incoming CEOs in the private and public sector. The move was clearly nonpartisan, as I had removed Republicans as well as Democrats, and they were essentially political appointees. The purpose was a clean start. The media portrayed this as the Wednesday night massacre, though only 4,000 employees left. They repeated their claims that I intended to turn US AGM into Trump TV, which they had manufactured the day after the White House selected me in March 2017. Every subsequent act of my administration was not only blocked but lied about and used to discredit me personally and the Trump administration generally. My efforts were treated as an attack that merited the strongest counterattack from my purported employees. Out of innumerable examples, let me offer only one. During the summer of 2020, in the midst of the presidential election, a whistleblower called our attention to a pro Biden video on the Voice of America Urdu service, the website of which could be viewed all over the world, including here in the US. The video was a repackaged Biden ad. Literally. It featured then candidate Biden in Michigan asking Muslims to vote for him, with supporting appearances by Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, progressive Democratic congresswomen. No context was offered. Please view, there's an offering of the video. I'm sure you can find it anywhere on YouTube and elsewhere. Everyone knew this violated the VOA charter, which is US law, and we are all required to uphold, and possibly other campaign broadcasting laws. When we called this to the VOA's attention, they took it down, though reluctantly. A week later, we discovered an audio version was still available. As CEO, I decided to launch an investigation to determine who was responsible and what disciplinary action should be taken. The investigation was led by US AGM career attorneys and our HR department, coordinated by a lawyer I had brought into the agency. They recommended a series of actions, including terminating the contractors who produced the video and milder actions for their superiors, including leave without pay for a week or two. This was not the first time the VOA had flagrantly violated U.S. law and its charter. During the 2016 election, the VOA Ukrainian service ran Robert De Niro's infamous attack on Donald Trump, calling him a pig and a dog, and saying he wanted to punch him in the face. This too ran without context. Viewers were not told it was part of a pro Hillary Clinton ad. The VOA is free to criticize the president or any candidate, but this was advocacy for one side, pure and simple. Remember, these are your tax dollars at work. However, never before I became CEO had there ever been any consequences for breaking the law. My inquiry was a shock to the system, but I felt I had to uphold the law. My actions were immediately attacked by the legacy media and by concerned congressmen, all in touch with the people I had fired. They charged that I was interfering with journalists and once again trying to turn the VOA into Trump TV. One reporter mocked me for saying that the VOA spot was targeted at getting out the Muslim vote in Michigan for Biden, citing how Urdu speakers there are in Michigan. But the VOA spot was in English, as he well knew. And he also knew that his readers would not know this. Soon, the fired contractors were represented by pro bono lawyers who accused us of violating the First Amendment rights. As contractors working for the U.S. government, are they free to express whatever views they wish, whatever the law says? Moreover, at a I am their boss at a media company. Do CNN journalists claim First Amendment rights when Jeff Zucker tells them what to what to report? The big lie of this story was that I told any reporters what to report. I simply required them to follow the law and requested that the agency enforce its own rules. The most senior person responsible was Kilu Chow, then the head of VOA language services. In her case, I merely gave her a verbal reprimand. It did not appear in her personnel file. She too immediately signed onto a suit against us, alleging a violation of her First Amendment rights. Today, she has been rewarded by the Biden administration and is the acting CEO of USAGM. Again, remember, this was November 2021 when this appeared. Um, Anyways, that gives you the kind of flavor. I'm not going to read it to its to its conclusion, but that kind of gives you the flavor of the kinds of things that went on in Trump one, and just to by people trying to basically circumvent any direction or order that was given by the president. And these judges are overstepping their bounds. These judges are need to be reined in. And it was not helpful for Chief Justice John Roberts just yesterday saying, "Oh, the talk of impeachment is overheated," and but Judge Roberts knows impeachment is a legislative act, not a function of the courts. And I said several weeks ago, our government is broken. And when I said that, I meant our government is broken. The three branches across all of government, and yes, that includes the courts, and these district court judges are going well beyond what they should be doing. And if it doesn't stop and they're not righted, we're going to have a country that's run by judges. And we had founders that warned us against that too. The next item I want to share with you is something out of Deerfield, Illinois. I got home from work Monday night and my social media feed on X had just blown up with information about something that was going on in a middle school in Deerfield, Illinois. And the setting is this. And this underscores why we need law. It's not enough for the president to say transgenderism is no longer something that's going to be recognized in our schools. We need law. Because what do we have going on right now? We have people who have latched on to the LGBTQ agenda at public school levels, and they are now doing things out of spite. So in Deerfield, Illinois, phys ed class was going down, and of course, typically what happens, there's a uniform that they want the kids to change into for athletics. Probably shorts, t-shirt, that kind of stuff. And there were middle school girls. I believe it was District 109. This is now very public information. You want the story? Go to the Lake County Gazette in Deerfield, Illinois. The story is there. That's where I got this from. And multiple administrators compelled middle school girls to change in front of a kid, a boy claiming to be and identifying as a girl. This is nothing short of a child abuse. And this is just madness. And we already have an example back several years ago out of Loudoun County, Virginia, where a kid claiming to be a female assaulted a girl in a school bathroom. Did they really think nothing would come of these decisions they were making about gender neutral locker rooms and bathrooms? Meanwhile, here in Western New York, East Aurora is a suburb of Buffalo. Last November, I'm sure this was following the election, sometime last fall, and I believe my recall is this is accurate. It was in November. A kid said there were only two genders. Well, when Trump took office and nothing was done at the time, but when Trump takes office and he's still starting to make decisions about transgenderism, it was time to punish this kid. And the parents or a parent has filed a court case in Western New York District Federal Court about what the school in East Aurora has been doing to the kid. Um, Again, this is why we need laws. We need laws. Executive orders are not enough. And I hope some of the stuff that is going on is impressing upon the Republicans to stop sitting on their hands and start following through with turning some of those executive orders into law. The last thing I want to share with you is something that I saw in the Christian Post late last week. And I just want to read a few paragraphs of this story. This thing ran last Friday. A Texas pastor and YouTuber who has claimed that the United States belongs exclusively to Christians, and that means non Christians shouldn't hold public office. Joel Wiebon, a self proclaimed Christian nationalist and leader of Covenant Bible Church in Georgetown, made the assertion during a Mark 7 episode of his Right Response Ministries podcast, in which he explained his understanding of how the founding fathers viewed non Christian Americans in the late 18th century. Wiebon said that while founding fathers held positive views of Jewish Americans in the colonial era because of the Bible and their knowledge of the Hebrew language, quote, they were pretty adamant about no mistreatment of anything like that, and yet simultaneously, without racial animus, they were also just able to say, no, America is for Americans, and it is predominantly an Anglo Protestant project. He continued, Jews cannot hold public office. They can live here, and they can live here peacefully and these kinds of things. But no, this is a Christian nation, and those who reject Christ and hate Christ, they can be in the car, and we shouldn't mistreat them, but they don't get to drive. He continued, it's okay to have a country. Listen to me, Christian. You are allowed to have a country. You are. It is okay to say, no, this country, this nation is for us and our posterity. It is not for Hindus, not for Muslims, and not for Jews. It belongs to Christians. I'm not going to take this time to get into some of the Christian nationalism theology that goes on and is occurring in parts of our country. I'm going to write about that at some point in my column because there are things that are going on. And I don't know Joel Wiebon. In fact, Georgetown, Texas is in the same county where my family lived, Williamson County, in the suburbs of Austin, northern suburbs of Austin. And let me just say this. This conversation is interesting. Are we a Christian nation? All of that. I'm more interested in the questions and the conversations that happen after that. What would he say about post Christian America? What would he say about the things that have been happening the last 50 plus years? We're coming up this year on the 100th anniversary of the Scopes trial. The Scopes trial was a trial in Tennessee that brought us the teaching of evolution. That was the beginning of the end, or the beginning of a trend that is bringing us to the point where we are right now. And my more interesting conversation with Joel Wiebon and other pastors and brothers and sisters in Christ would be, what do you have to say about the post-Christian America? Do you even believe that we are in a post-Christian America? That to me is far more interesting than what is going on with this conversation that got latched onto by the Christian Post. Because we have all kinds of non-Christians serving in government today. And it isn't just the federal government, it is state, local, you name it. And it's not just legislators and executives, it's judges. How do you attempt to enforce this? How do you attempt to and I would argue you have to employ Exodus 18:21, something I've talked about more than once on this podcast. But this is a conversation that is long overdue in the church, as we've seen the country slide into slippery territory. And we now have Elon Musk, a hero for rescuing astronauts, but we have people going around our country, king Teslas, firebombing Teslas, and vandalizing Tesla dealerships. And how do you peacefully coexist in a country where you have an opposition that reacts emotionally to everything? But that story, when I saw it, grabbed my attention pretty quickly, and I wanted to share it. Um, that's all I have on this episode. There's something I didn't get to that I will be bringing up in the future. In this podcast, there's something really neat at the end that I want to share with you, and it is the testimony of Butch Wilmore from outer space in an interview with CBS. Basically, the gospel went out over CBS airwaves. And I will share that video in the comments to this podcast. And once again, I thank you for watching. If you're encouraged by what you're seeing here, hearing here, watching here, please share it. And drop in a column again on Sunday. And once again, just letting people know this podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and a variety of other spots right now. And until next time, God bless and goodbye.